In the rolling hills of northern New Jersey is an exceptional train layout. This tin-plate masterpiece is the work of Joe and Doreen Giannetti. This railroad is big, so big that it completely fills the basement of their home. There are also a lot of trains on this railroad. How many? Would you believe that Joe can operate 73 trains at once on this layout? And before we're finished, you'll see almost all of them in action. Like many of us, Joe got started in the hobby with a toy train as a kid.
My father bought me my first train before I was born. He bought it. And he kept it aside for about 3 or 4 years, till I was a little bit older, to use it. And we used to just set it up and then, now and then. And then I had about 5 sets. So we just set them up at Christmas time and then bring it all down. Turned about 13, 14, or 15 or so. We were moving. My father said, "What do you want to do with all these trains and toys?" I said, "Give them away. I don't want them." So I thought he gave them all away all these years. So about 1985, he was playing at his home down there with these trains. I said, "Where's those trains?" He said, "Those are yours." So I got back in the hobby again. I didn't know Lionel was still in business. I didn't know they made toy trains anymore. Then a new world opened up, and here I am with all this stuff, and I got back into it again. Well, we got the idea at about 1990. We decided to build a house, and we wanted to build a house for the trains, actually the basement. So we designed the basement first, the way we wanted it, and then my wife started designing the top part of it. So that's how we really got started. So it took us about a year or so to get the house done, and then it took me about a year to finish the basement and put the shelves up, get the trains up, and then I started on the table. And it took us about six years to do it.
Building this layout was a true labor of love for both Joe and Doreen, and they both worked on it.
Well, I did the tables and the track work and the wiring and stuff, and Doreen did sort of laying out the buildings and the cities and the mountains and the scenery and that type of stuff. And the other stuff, we went to shows and other sort of stuff, and we managed to buy and put all the stuff together.
I wanted to make waterfalls and make them look realistic, and I knew what I wanted to do somewhat. And after the track was down, after we started, I wanted to create some elevation.
Doreen's idea about how to disguise the supporting poles in the basement worked perfectly.
He made a great factory, and I was looking for a place to put it, and it just happened to work by one of the poles. So what we did was made an extension of that factory. And Joe got a couple of PVC pipes, and we painted it the same color of the pole. And on the top, where I was going to paint it red and white check, it wasn't working. So I went to a party store, and I got red and white check tablecloths. And then I just cut the plastic and I hot glued it along the top, so it really came off looking like a Purina factory.
The downtown area of the big city on this layout is huge, complete with tall skyscrapers.
We've never seen skyscrapers on a layout, and I always wanted that. And then I always wanted to own a casino, so I can't afford a casino, so I made myself on the layout. And then we just kept making skyscrapers in kid fashion with different items.
The city at night is a sight to behold. Joe has used over 3,000 miniature lights in the city to make the night scene sparkle with light. This layout runs a combination of automated trains and trains operated with the Lionel Trainmaster command system. And the overall statistics of this layout are staggering.
We run 73 trains and trolleys at one time. There's 25 that run on a automatic passenger system, which 15 trains on a yard system in and out automatically, and then there's another freight station that works the same way with 9 trains in and out. And then we have a subway train underneath it, a layer that runs 23 trains and trolleys underneath that. We have 18 ZWs, we have 9 command control units, and then we have about another 40 other various transformers to run the other lights and loaders and stuff.
One of the most unique parts of the layout are the automated passenger and freight yards. Joe runs 9 trains on the freight loop and 15 trains on the passenger loop. All the trains leave the station, run around the layout, and back into the station again. And they're all automatically controlled by the yard system developed at the train station in Mountain Lakes, New Jersey. Dave Shaw explains how it works.
The yard system was something that was designed by Don Shaw. It allowed for automation of train routing and controlling the trains, dispatching them, and keeping them continuously running without the operation required of manipulating and controlling a transformer. For both the passenger siding and the freight siding, it actually is one continuous loop with a set of sidings that split into 4 different tracks and then throat back into the same loop. So if it is one continuous circle, which allows us to run 15 trains on the passenger siding and 9 trains on the freight siding, all being automated, automatically routed, automatically dispatched. When you sit there and see some of the footage as the trains run through, you're amazed at watching the way they're controlled and dispatched. When Joe and I first started watching the freight siding, we watched quite closely and we were ready to grab the trains in threat of a crash, and then we slowly relaxed and lightened up and then finally just stood back and watched for a while as the system just took complete control of the trains, and we just stood and enjoyed the trains being routed in and out from switch to siding and then being dispatched on out to the body of the loop. We've incorporated an interlocking system into the yard system, allowing the switches to be deactivated if there's a train passing over the switches, and also in the exiting, allowing the trains to exit on the appropriate track to move out into the body of the layout.
No good train layout would be complete without a circus and an amusement park. Joe and Doreen have put together a good one, complete with all the rides and attractions that appeal to the kids. Everywhere you look on this layout, there's something going on. Joe has obviously made a huge investment in building this layout. Now this might cause a problem for some fellas because the better half might object to spending so much money on toy trains, but Joe doesn't seem to have this problem.
My wife doesn't stop me from buying anything. She gets on my case sometimes, but you know, she goes along with it.
No, I tease him about that. I'm not stupid, that way I can get what I want.
For Joe and Doreen, building this masterpiece was half the fun.
Once it's done, it's finished. I mean, it's fun to run them and show them, but I think a big part of it is creating and doing and learning from your mistakes. So many mistakes we made along the way happen to be some of the highlights of the layout. I remember when Joe was doing the Greyhound station, he worked diligently on this part of the project for, I bet, about a month, making it from scratch. Now, I'm climbing up on the top by the Hellgate Bridge, and I'm working away, and all of a sudden I hear this crunch. I didn't even want to look at Joe. I thought he stepped on the edge of the guide rail. I didn't even want to say a word. I just kind of snuck away, went upstairs, and I came down, and Joe goes, "Hey, look what we got. We got a great accident site. I always wanted to use these ambulances." And he put the car up on a ramp, and he took a hammer, and he smashed a car, and it makes a great scene of an accident. But you really, instead of getting crazy with it, how am I going to fix this? Just work with it, and just, go with it. And I think they happen to turn out to be some of the greatest parts. People can get crazy with it and get frustrated and try to repair it, but just go with it,
We had no plan doing this. We just started laying the track. We did the tables, we laid down the track, and Doreen put this here, I'd look at it, and she would look at it. We put a building here, we just went on that way. There was no really plan, except for the yard systems. We had to come up with a track plan for that, but otherwise, everything else was just as we went.